Okay, so there's one. And there we go. So good afternoon, good evening. Oh yeah, good evening. Hope everybody's doing all right today. Had an interesting deal come across my desk, and I wanted to share this with you guys. And hopefully, some of you that are real estate investors could look and tell me what I'm looking at incorrectly versus maybe what we're looking at correctly. Right. So a little bit of a background. I was approached by somebody that, it's a friend of a friend kind of a situation. And they're just passing along the deal to see about helping their friend move some properties. And I'm always thankful when somebody wants to bring a deal and send it over to me because yeah, that's how you find those opportunities is to look and network and find the deals. So as I go through this and as I discuss my thought process, I want to give a disclaimer. This is in no way, giving somebody a hard time or, picking anything apart. It's just simply part of a due diligence process when you start looking at these. Mainly because as I go into this, my investors trust me to be a consultant for them, right? And it doesn't matter if they're using me with private money lending, if they're trusting me to go out there and put that to work, or to help them acquire properties. The big part is they trust me to be their consultant, to really kind of do the homework before I present it to them and make sure that it passes that litmus test and say, hey, look, is this going to be a deal? Because like them, they don't want to waste their time. I don't want to waste my time. Nobody gets anything accomplished by that. So I dive in and I just kind of take a crack at the numbers. Just for privacy of the deal, I'm not going to give a lot of the details, but let's just say that it's some new construction and it's in Southwest Florida. And I'm going to do a quick screen share and let you see what I'm working with and what my thought process is on this. So I just run it into my little calculator to kind of get an analysis, right? Um, they were talking about pro forma numbers, which are basically saying, hey, it would come out if it performs at this level with these costs. This is what you could stand to get as far as your return. Great, fantastic. I've got the numbers. Let's run through it. Listed sales price $410,000. Projected rents 4,100. Now, obviously, with that, you're going to look because these are duplexes. Each side is going to be 2050 to a little bit more, but even if you go over here on the conservative side, I would say probably 2,000 a unit for these three-bedroom duplexes. Again, there's two of them, so your total rent's going to be 44,000. Now, GRM, gross rent multiplier, that doesn't necessarily apply for new construction, right? So these are, yeah, I mean, if you could find a 5-year payback on new construction, do you boo boo and tell me where you got it because I want to go over there and get some of that too. Anyway, so we're going to ignore the rest of that, but this is just going to give me the placeholder for the rest of my information. Now, if this gets a little bit dense, please forgive me. I'll try to slow it down. But also, if you have any questions, the great thing to do is to go in here and let me just see if I can get that banner. Boom. Yeah. While I'm doing this, if you have any questions, give me a text or send me a message and I'll try to reply. But oftentimes with the streaming, I'm limited in what I can see and how I can reply. So text is going to be best. But let's look at the debt service, right? So this is going to need to be able to cash flow. You've got to see what kind of debt service can you get. Well, it's going to be with one of those larger lenders, like a larger shop, Lima Capital, and some of these other ones. Well, the mortgage amount, right, of that is because they're probably going to go 70% maximum loan to value on you. So you're going to go 30 to 33% down. You're going to take out a mortgage. If you bought this for $410,000, your mortgage with 33% down is going to be 274.7. And then with the interest rates on their pro forma, which I feel is a little bit light, I think that they're expecting the rates to be down whenever this buy happens. So, they're a little optimistic on that part. And the 30-year term, that is going to be with some of those bigger shops because your local lenders, those credit unions, those different, community banks, they typically do 5-year term notes with a 20 or 25-year uh, sometimes only 15. Amortization, which means that instead of a 30-year payment schedule, you're going to be on a 15, 20, or 25-year payment schedule, which let me just show you what that does. So 30-year, there we go. 15, look at how much your note goes up, right? 20, it goes down a little bit more. 25 is extremely favorable with those types of banks and really hard to find. Or 30 with these larger shops that they'll carry those notes because they've got investor money coming back to them and they're just taking out those loans. And those investors are looking at 6% annual returns. The loans that I do, no way on earth could I pull those loans and make my investors happy with that. And just because right now my investors we're seeing 10, 12, 13%. So, I'm too small of a operation to give money out at that rate. Anyway, going back to it and off my tangent. Now let's go in here and look at some of the other numbers, right? So there's your mortgage. Those are all prefabbed out. Your property taxes, your property management, typically you're going to see 10% of your insurance monthly. And that insurance, that's probably going to be a high deductible policy, to be honest with you. So make sure that you've got good reserves built back in the event of a storm, of a loss, or anything like that. Then let's go in here and maintenance reserve and vacancy reserve. So you'll notice that my property management runs 10%. Classically, I will go 10, 10, and 10 through maintenance, vacancy, and management as far as the percentage that I hold back for a total of 30% of the rents. Now, being that it's new construction and this market's fairly stabilized, I would say, okay, let's run it at 5% for maintenance, for vacancy. Even though it's a new build, yes, you shouldn't have deferred maintenance stacking up. What you could have, though, is a tenant that trashes your property. So you still want to make sure that you have some of that stuff saved back and you've got those reserves in working capital so that you can get your property restored. Now, if we're looking over here, they gave a prospectus of over 14% cash on cash. But if we look in here, monthly cash flow after this is $994. Now, the cash flow is the PCF, the positive cash flow after everything, including debt service, has been allowed for. But then you go in here, your monthly NOI, your annualized NOI, and then your capitalization rate's 8%. That's a pretty big difference whenever you are talking 14% to 8%. Now, does anybody have any thoughts on that? Tell me, what do you think? I know it's quick and dirty, and you're probably not really in a position to to stop and break all the math down. But that's why I tell people, the details. That's what matters. The numbers don't lie. You can give me a prospectus all day long, just like whenever somebody wants to flip a house, and we're determining what is the house going to be worth whenever it sells. Unfortunately, some of the newer people in the game, they go over here and they look and they say, well, so my realtor sent me this one, and this one, and these homes are all for sale on the same street, really close together. And they're all asking $250, $275 a square foot. And my thought process is to go back to them and say, respectfully to your realtor, what people ask and what people get are two different things. The only way to really determine where the market's at and what value is look at what has sold and recently and as close as you can to that subject property, right? So if you're about to flip 123 Main Street and 456 Main Street is asking for, $900 a square foot, yet 678 Main Street, right down the street, actually sold for $200 a square foot. I'm telling you right now, the market is giving you the data that you need to make that decision. And you want to stay in that 200 plus or minus dollars per square foot if you want to be successful. Because if you go over here and price it, you price yourself out of the market, here's the problem. You're going to be on the market longer. That means that your holding costs, the costs of borrowing money from a lender or anybody else where you have debt on that note, and the leverage, right? So you've got the leverage, the debt, everything else, it starts to compound. And in time, if you don't do the work correctly, or if you flip that house and maybe you didn't hold your contractor to a good enough standard, but yet you still listed way up here where you thought that that made sense at the time. If the work would have been done correctly, then great. But you need to make these allowances through the project. And that's why I explain to people the devil is in the details, and so are the numbers. That's where the profit is. And if you don't look out for your profit and protect it, whenever you analyze a profit, just looking at this, that's where you end up getting your equity stripped, right? You end up paying for extensions, everything else that you don't want to do whenever you're trying to get over here and be successful in a project. Because your job is not to flip a house. Your job is to be a good steward of money. All right. Now, flipping a house is the component in which you're operating at that time. But you want to make sure that these investors that trust you with their money, that they feel confident that they're going to get it back. Well, whenever you overprice a property or you misanalyze your property and you miss that target, you're the one that's going to have to take that loss if you want to salvage those relationships, right? So again, this is why it's so important to go out there and find a network of people that you can go and you can run deals by, people that have integrity, that aren't going to go and try to scope or snipe your deal from you. Make sure that you have the right people around you, or go and get into a mastermind group or something else to where you can actually lean on other people's experience for that stuff. Anyway, that's it. In looking at that, some people would say, well, Lee, yeah, that's a 6% swing. Yeah. It's actually a 80% swing because 6 of 8 is 80%. So whenever you think about it like that, they missed their projections by 80% on this. Not really the way that I would want to do it, but hey, look, to each their own. Anyway, I'm going to get on with the evening. Yeah, yeah, we've had dinner. Now it's time to start winding things down. I've got a couple emails to kick out. And if you need anything, we do have some capital ready to deploy. So if you're looking for a fix and flip loan or something like that, dial in. Let's see what we can do to make it happen. Again, that's going to be Louisiana, Florida. I can still help you in just about every other state. I do not have somebody in Alaska that I'm aware of. However, if I can help you, please reach out. Yeah, always happy to get together on these kind of deals, analyze them, and see what we can do to help you be successful, and also for me to help grow my business with my lenders and private investors to help them. So, y'all have a great night. Take care.